Ladies and gents, boys and girls, everyone in between, welcome to, I think this is episode 10 of the Authenticity Hour. Yeah, let's get it. We made it. 10 full episodes of me chatting absolute waffle with someone else every week. Whoa, what a world. What a world. Today we have a very special guest, studio manager and overall creative badass, Clarissa. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time. And today we're doing a bit of a format shift. So you may have noticed our wonderfully fabulous bag in the middle here, the Flamingo Bag of Wonders. And what we're going to be doing is shaking this bad boy up and picking out subjects to talk from because, you know, we just like to mix things up and do wacky stuff here. But first of all, let's dive into the origin story of our guest. Clarissa, tell the people about yourself and your hero origin story.
Okay, hero origin story. Way back when, I actually came from South Africa over when I was 6. We're not going to do the whole life story thing, but...
Mr. Worldwide, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I came over from South Africa. I've been here since I was 6. Always wanted to do animation and sort of creative work.
Yeah, it's your strength. Or one of many, in fact. plug.
Yeah, last year at the beginning of the pandemic, I went freelance.
Excellent. Yeah.
That ended up working out really, really well for me, but fortunately I met James and we mutually decided that it would be beneficial for us to join forces in our hero stories and for me to take over as studio manager whilst he does his badass thing to help grow the business. That is badass.
Okay, fair enough. You guys start.
So yeah, he's been largely gassing me up and
for good reason.
For
good reason.
About a month and a half now.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah.
So that's been going quite well.
Time flies when you're making world-renowned video work and you know images and graphics and all of that stuff.
It was the taking over the world thing was supposed to be secret, but we're all good.
Damn it! Quick, get the door. All right, but yeah, you've been marketing badass for many years anyway. So it's how did you start? What made you choose animation? What was your uni path, or if there was uni actually?
Oh, well, pre-uni. Well, firstly, as you know, I'm a massive nerd anyway. But I didn't want to go into film and TV. The industry can be, it's a fantastic industry, but it can be quite volatile, and a lot of it's based on large studios and the animators that sometimes work in those environments don't get paid their worth. Corporate animation gets paid better, and I also feel that the skill level in corporate animation can sometimes not be held to the same standard as you would expect to see in studio work. So there was room there in a niche market where you can do very, very well. Yeah. If you are more of a natural creative than someone that is more that way inclined, because it seems to be either you have the corporate animation and you have, you know, sometimes I want to say it's not an all-round rule, but how to say it's just
how to say it delicately.
People seem to allow for a massive quality drop in corporate animation that doesn't need to be there. Yeah.
Maybe it's because they don't value the activity as much in corporate.
A lot of people cutting corners and budgets and stuff, and
there's a lot of education involved in terms of the bridging the gap between corporate and creative. We see it every day in terms of like reiterating the fact that like this piece of content has a very, very important reason. It has so many nuances involved, and the quality means everything because there's an audience on the other end. I know exactly what you mean. Faced the barrier many times.
Yeah. No, I know you do. But that's it basically. I wanted to go into animation because I really liked creative work, but I wanted to go into corporate animation over studio animation because I thought that there was a gap in the market, and I didn't really want to be in a studio sort of animation TV environment.
Yeah, it can get quite corporate from what I've heard from secondhand things and random documentaries. Probably don't frame them in the best light. So anyone who's actually in TV and film animation, you know, the classic style stuff, or even anime, in fact, I'd love to talk to you then. Then yeah, let us know what it's really like because all we see is secondhand documentaries talking about how overworked your staff are. That's pretty much all we see from it. So
not just that, but outsourcing is a major issue, because a lot of stuff gets outsourced over, not necessarily to. It was Korea for a while. It's not necessarily Korea anymore. Philippines, it gets outsourced to. India, it gets outsourced to. And you often can't really compete with the prices there. So
no. And the quality doesn't necessarily always drop. It's always just a case of sometimes there's creative synergy there. People have different styles, ways of working. Sharing files can probably be a massive pain. Methodologies, the way people's put together. If you have to operate on one core file, there's probably lots of system and processes involved if there's multiple people working on a single project, or even just kind of making assets and things as well. So yeah, you probably felt that pain many times to organising all that.
Yeah, I do have friends that work in film and TV, and they do an amazing job and they really enjoy it, but it wasn't my space. So I went into digital marketing for a while, and then I went freelance, and now I'm with you. And
here we are, which brings us to a very, very convenient segue. We have shaken the flamingo bag of mysteries and come up with our first talking point, which is the importance of long-term goals. Now, at Shogun, we have kind of a unique philosophy in that we want to make sure we put our business's long-term goal right there front and center so everyone knows it, but also prioritize everyone's long-term goals individually. So on the board we have things like, I want to own a co-working space one day alongside like running Shogun. James behind the camera, who always works magic, wants to be an expert in freelance video and just be an overall creative badass there. My sister Amy wants to work for Marvel Comics one day, or who knows where that will go.
If you work for Marvel, she's amazing.
We see you out there. We see you. We have a candidate.
She'd do an amazing job. We think she's really cool. Some life goals aren't necessarily even career based. Like I'd like to own a house. Things like that. Maybe if you want to move overseas, maybe you want to move to London, maybe you want to have a specific job title. Any of those things that are important to you, you don't need to explain why they're important to you. But if you tell us if you tell us as a company that those are your long-term goals, we're going to try work backwards and see how we as a company can facilitate that.
Yeah, so it works both ways, both through client relationships, our internal stuff. Having a vision of something is always the most important element, or one of anyway, because it's a driving force as well. It keeps you motivated. Everyone has to have a reason to wake up in the morning, and sometimes having it always be about your company's goal, especially when you come into a job all the time, is what I found demoralising in the past. So I'm just a difficult individual anyway when it comes to jobs. Anyone that looks at my LinkedIn will see the progression of going here, not happy, why, and this is why we're here. But it's because I always felt like I'm always working for someone else's dream and not my own. And this is why I wanted to make sure that at least we can create the environment where people can work on their own dreams and we work together for a business goal. For anyone who's familiar with the anime world, it's called the One Piece principle, where in the show the main captain wants to be the pirate king and everyone else has their own goals as well, which are never like side goals. Like they always get a little bit closer in each character arc and things like that. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I wanted to see if it could apply to real life as well as anime. So
well, you have to have those. If you don't try for those ideals, no one's going to see if they are possible. And I think there's no reason for them not to be. I think it works really well. And also the important thing there is recognizing that we no longer work in a world where your staff are your staff forever. People are estimated to be changing jobs between 6 to 8 times in a lifetime.
Yep.
So accepting from day dot that your employee is not going to be your employee for life, probably. No matter how amazing you are, they have life goals and plans. And if you can help facilitate that and not fight that, you can really get the best out of your employees. And a real feel-good feeling with yourself as well. You're not sat there feeling gypped because they've left, because they've gotten a bigger, better offer. You're excited for them because you know that that's exactly what you and they were working towards.
Yeah. And think about what a vehicle it is as well to attract talent.
Yeah.
Because if you are going to have a higher turnover than historic years have had, you have to create an environment where people can feel like they progress and move on. It attracts talent as well as helps grow it, because especially if because we prioritize a lot on internal training, and I make sure that all the internal training we do has some kind of certificate at the end. So while we have like tight deadlines for all of our training stuff, like you're just stacking your CV while we're here, because even if you'd be here for like, I don't know, like 6 months, you're going to come away with 6 months worth of experience and like 6 qualifications along with it, because we put you through the fire. But that's going to benefit you so much in the trajectory of your career. And having that clear goal on the big whiteboard every day is something to push towards. It has to be there.
That's the other thing. Those goals are on the whiteboard every day.
Yes.
And I've actually had to sit down with every team member in terms of how we can, what the next step is towards that, and holding them accountable.
Yes. Yeah, that's accountability checks are a big one, because sometimes you get wrapped up in the day-to-day and you don't stop to think, okay, what am I doing to progress, or what am I doing to do this? So having that person there to actually talk to about it, and that being that person being your manager, is really unique.
Yeah, well, hopefully it works out well.
Hopefully, of course it will.
You can't really go wrong there, though, can you?
No, not
in
really.
terms of staff training, we also do that. So we have like staff training in terms of specific staff training with certifications that are appropriate for the company in general, and then depending on the individual and their long-term goals, you then assign specific tasks or additional training that are in line with both the company needs and their long-term goals. So it's a win-win on both sides there.
All wins everywhere. Yeah. And that's what every company should aim to create. Mutual wins at every single stage.
Yeah.
Because why just have it kind of like a one-sided thing always in terms of the company? And it may be because the corporate world has never really vibed with me per se, to put it nicely.
I think it vibes with many people, to be honest.
Some people can just go to work and not even think about it, and some, like, especially when I've had chats to people that like can barely understand where I'm coming from, and that just shows me how different the world is, and that's fine. But I think even to people who are just happy to go there, get on with it and come home, would actually appreciate the fact that they're being prioritised in some way or another. I kind of really like that, and hopefully the mystery bag, here you go, you can go this time. The mystery bag will lead us to our next topic and actually talk a little bit more on that. You have to let us know in the comments if you like this format, by the way. I'm liking it. I have no idea what's coming next. I'm excited.
I think the other thing that's important about long-term goals, before I pick out another one, is treating your employees like adults.
Biggie.
I think a major thing in terms of the flexibility we offer, in terms of a 4-day work week, in terms of the long-term goals, I think what we really prioritise is treating your employees like human beings.
Surprising how often it's not done.
No, even in big corporate environments, people are micromanaged, and you're talking about people, in their 30s and their 40s, and every task is tracked and managed, and there's no sort of level of trust between the employee and the boss. And
then bosses and management get confused on why their employees show no initiative. Yeah, because you're spoon feeding them in every step of the way. There's no room for progression, and there's not an environment for progression nor innovative thinking either.
Yeah, or creating that. Some people might come to you at 30 and have no skills in terms of initiative, in terms of building their own initiative or taking those skills on.
It's a learned skill. But
it's a learned skill. You do need to learn it. If you're never given the opportunity to, they'll get to 50 without learning that.
You can also you could probably go through 10 jobs and by luck probably have one that has a strict management system in place that never actually drops you in the fire at any point. It's all just prescriptive and might as well be replaced by a robot kind of thing. It's a bit like, so that'll be an interesting dynamic to see how AI changes the workplace, but that's a whole nother topic.
Treat your employees like adults, and if they mess up, they probably will mess up. That's one thing that we know, like the way that we work, we're not anticipating that everybody's going to be a saint, and that we're not going to have issues where people push the boundaries a little bit. People are going to, and time management's difficult, and prioritizing is difficult, and taking the initiative, you're going to mess up a little bit.
Again, prioritization, a learned skill as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's something that comes over time, and I think a lot of management doesn't give enough leeway for teaching prioritization. I feel like tasks and just general chit chats about, okay, if you were to prioritize this week, what would you do? Because sometimes doing that with your employees, especially if you have a smaller team, just go, okay, we've got all these tasks, what order would you put them in? Go. And then have them get better at that over time. That's actually a really valuable skill for everyone to pick up, because then everyone can be on it just as much as your management is, in a more engaging way.
Yeah, and then they feel like adults, and it also takes a lot of pressure off the amount of administration and spoon feeding that needs to be done.
Yes.
In the long run, although it might lose you some money in the short run, long term it's going to save you time management, effort, and they'll learn those skills. So that's all good. Let's see what our next task is.
Mysteries.
Freelancing.
Yes.
That's a fun one.
A very open topic as well. So shall we start with kind of almost like a mini beginner's guide to freelancing? So we'll probably frame it in the context of marketing creative. But if you just get someone who's starting from scratch, has good knowledge of Photoshop, good knowledge of Canva, very, very creative brain, how would you then introduce them to the freelance realm? Because I think that's putting creatives in a business space is one of the
very difficult.
It's whole other skill sets to learn, and finding where to start and building micro momentum tends to be the hardest thing. So where would you recommend to start?
I think one thing that we've discussed quite heavily is picking your social media platform in terms of at least pick one where you're going to be promoting. I found a lot of support on Facebook.
Groups.
Yeah, Facebook groups particularly, not one-on-one. You found LinkedIn quite effective.
Extremely, yeah.
There's loads of Facebook groups and initiatives specifically geared towards women freelancing. So if I was looking at a female creative, I would point them in the direction of a lot of marketing groups, a lot of graphics groups, specifically geared towards women in freelancing and business. That was a great place for me to start, and definitely where I found the sort of traction that I needed to get the ball rolling. Because as you always say, as soon as you've got one client, you can do it again.
Yeah, and that again, when you're first starting on freelancing, if you're not lucky enough to bring someone with you from your previous environment, or let's say you're out of uni, fresh start, you don't want to follow the traditional path. That first one is the biggest mountain to climb. Genuinely, it feels completely impossible until you've done it. And anytime you hear someone talk about their first client, often they tell you a story of complete luck or they knew someone. Yeah. So that is the most frustrating thing about it. So one, you have to put yourself in place to meet people. So now physical networking is back open again. Physical network, digital network. Just knowing people can be an amazing start.
Word of mouth is awesome.
Yes.
The first thing that I did was set up a website. My websites are a fantastic way to get leads. Unfortunately, my website was garbage.
Unless you have the search traffic or the CRO knowledge to get it to a converting place.
It's mostly word of mouth initially. Social networking in person, promoting on social networks, or a lot of my initial clients, because even before I went freelance full time, I did a lot of illustration work. A lot of that was word of mouth. Somebody knew someone who knew someone who either had a business that needed illustration or graphics, or had a friend that wanted an anniversary gift that was particularly special. A lot of that was word of mouth. So it is, it's networking, whatever platform you use, in person, online.
Yeah, and don't shy away from being on all the platforms as well. From a freelancing point of view, not social. So when it comes to I was in the position where I had to start from complete scratch. Yeah. And that is the hardest position to be in, because no matter how much you Google it, every YouTube video you watch, it's just people saying, "Oh, I just knew a guy," or whatever. And it's like, "Oh, can you off?" So again, get yourself on every freelance platform possible. So we're talking Fiverr. Don't underestimate it, especially if you have the professional qualification. Then make sure you apply for Fiverr Pro as well. Just go for it anyway. The application process is quite long, it's like 3 months, but you'll get much higher level inquiries. Which one did you just mention? Upwork, killer. It gives you, I think it's like 80 credits to apply for stuff, as well as having it somewhere where people can come inbound. So that's really nice. I think Contra HQ is a newer one that's just opened up.
I haven't heard of. But
so I think that's more of an American platform, but we'll see how that performs. They're doing extremely well on TikTok, just promoting kind of job openings and freelance elements. So that's really, really cool. So you get yourself on all of them, just have a presence, because making a website can actually be quite daunting, because there's so much that can go into it. And then being about yourself, there's a lot of perfectionism there. There's a lot of issues that can arise when you're, especially when you're starting, imposter syndrome getting in your way while making your first website.
That's a big one.
huge one. I think we had our first website when we were like 4 months old, so it took ages for us to have one, because I actually used my Fiverr account as my website in the beginning. So I was like, it's not ready, I can't show people, it's not ready. And people often do that with their social media platforms, and we often help them get through that. Even established businesses do that. So be available on all of these, because you want places to get inbound leads as well as you going out and finding them. So when you start freelancing, you want half your time dedicated to optimizing these platforms for inbound leads, and then going out and actually going to try and get them, because you don't have an ad budget at the start, and if you do, excellent. Make sure you do it on the appropriate platforms. So many different ways to do it, but starting from absolute zero, that's how I'd do it.
No, I agree. I also think, I'm not sure about you, but I had a bit of a trial by fire when it came to freelance. It was a lot of people I know had a job, then built a freelance business alongside of it. For me, it was very much full-time job, freelance.
I feel like pandemic babies like us, there's a lot for that.
A lot of us. But it is doable. If you end up in that position, don't freak out too much. If you can get a mentor, amazing.
Yes.
Like I've actually now mentored a good 3 or 4 other people. They will but I've had mentors of mine hand me clients,
Big one. Same here, actually. Some of the coaches at Barclays Eagle Labs have been a great referral network for us, because they've believed in the ethos that we go through. So that's been an amazing thing. And keep them sweet. See if you can help them as much as humanly possible as well. Video testimonials, and like just helping with their channels if you're a creative bod. Doing the occasional freebie for someone who could be a strategic partner for you is massive. Also in the freelance game, don't be afraid to whitelist if you need to bring in the cash. So, pardon me, there'll be plenty of people who need creative overflow, who need ad overflow.
Do you what whitelisting is?
Yeah, so whitelisting is essentially you provide all the services, but that agency gets to put their name on it, and you work out a fee based on that, in either a day rate or hourly rate. So it's almost like ghostwriting for those who like music, and it can be...
Or writing.
Yeah.
Novels are largely ghostwritten.
Very true. And especially in the beginning, especially if you have big ambitions, that can be like the worst. You're like, I don't want to do that.
Ego.
And actually, it's been a big reason why we've never done that. But I think it's definitely somewhere I'd like to explore, because it can open you up to much larger projects. And actually, if you are whitelisting, the amount you can learn from another bigger established agency as a freelancer can be huge. And that's something you can't underestimate or find through a generic business coach. When you're starting a marketing or creative business, most of the coaches will not come from that background. And if they do, they come from a corporate marketing background. So it's a completely different environment. So working with small and medium-sized businesses, the advice that they can give you sometimes isn't 100% applicable. And there's nothing you can kind of do about it to get the most accurate advice. So that's always going to be my advice to people. Build as many strategic partnerships as possible. Join agency communities. Agencynomics is a big one. They've written an amazing book as well for those who want to start from scratch. So I think it's Stephen Gallagher, I think his name is. I'll have to quote that. Sorry, I forgot your name wrong, my dude. But yeah, check out the book. It's seriously valuable. There are online communities like Enterprise Orchard to join as well. So that's just a general entrepreneurial community. And then there are co-working spaces, which is another hidden gem. Which
we'd totally talk about for a whole podcast at some point. We will cover co-working spaces. In terms of freelancing, though, we've covered how to get started. What are some of your favourite things about freelancing and the challenges that you really, really struggled with freelancing? I know I have quite a few, but I'll let you get started on that one.
Okay. So freedom is one. Like, I'm a weird individual in that, like, I didn't actually enjoy the freedom that freelancing gave me in the beginning, because I was so focused on building something bigger, which I kind of regret now, because I wish I could have gone back to a place where I had less responsibility and more flexibility with my hours. I could have halved my work week and enjoyed the same salary, but I just didn't. So if you do have that period, especially after just recovering from the pandemic and the bloody financial strain, the mental strain it's put people through, don't be afraid to just use your skills wisely. Make sure you have contracts in place, so that's something you can sit on and you're not like having to get more in the door to replace it. And obviously this is dependent on your skill set, but feel free to use that time, because buying yourself time is extremely valuable. Time is the ultimate currency at the end of the day. That's not something money can buy it eventually, but if you then get that money too late, you've lost the time you already had. So don't work too hard, which is I
think that's actually the biggest thing, is don't work too hard. Burnout is
Yes.
rough. And I don't mean, oh, I'm a little bit tired. I mean, you can hit a level of burnout that I didn't know existed. And I mean, you wake up one day and you cannot get out of bed.
Yeah, you give yourself the flu. I did it to myself about...
A couple of times.
at least twice.
I didn't even have it. I was massive fatigue issues because I'd burnt myself out because the thing is, yeah, it is hustle. It is, it is a grind. You do have deadlines. You are responsible only. You're the only person that the responsibilities fall on, and those clients and deadlines need to be met, or your bills won't get paid. But I also went too far that way in terms of the fact that at some point I was working from, 7 to 8 in the morning until midnight, and then I wondered why I gave myself the flu.
Yeah, it's amazing. It will manifest into a proper illness.
Proper physical illness.
It's not just like, oh, I feel a bit tired. It's like you get all the symptoms.
Strain. It's literally you will make yourself sick.
Yeah. So listen to your body.
Eat, sleep.
Eat, sleep, rave, repeat.
Take a break.
Yeah. What else?
If you don't take that break, like in terms of using that time, the time that you said, because you do charge or should charge a little bit more as a freelancer because everything's your responsibility. You should have a little bit more wriggle room in terms of time, and if you don't, you need to double check what you're doing and make sure you're doing it so you do get that time off, because the worst thing to happen is if you're undercharging and you're working those hours and you hit burnout, you're not going to have the money to buffer when you've burnt out.
Yes.
So charge properly, make sure you're working reasonable hours and not making yourself sick, because it's an investment. You are an investment, and if you do hit that stage where you've been charging too little and you are burnt out and you have a week where you can't work, you are going to be in deep trouble.
This guy, been there.
We've been there. It is not fun. Don't do it. We've done it.
Yeah. And this is why the next tip is network as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. Because
networking is what allowed me to find a mentor that told me about an extremely valuable resource. So for anyone who wants to start a fledgling agency, their pricing, unless you've been there, done that and seen it, you have no idea where to start. You're like, and also if you come from a more working class background like I did, you have like, giving yourself mental permission to charge enough is also a big barrier.
Imposter syndrome, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you're like, oh my god, I can't charge this much. They'll laugh at me, and then you feel like something's going to explode or whatever. But one of the best things someone ever showed me was if anyone's ever seen the WOW report, every year an accountancy that specialises in working with agencies puts out a report. It shows what the industry's charging at the moment, and that has been the most blessed thing I've ever received in my entire life, and I wish we hadn't received it so late on, but it allows you to then have a resource to go, oh my god, this is what everyone else is doing. Now I can actually relax enough to stress about my pricing, because then if someone does push back against your pricing, you can go, here you go, here's a report on what the industry's doing. You're probably getting a better rate from me than anyone else is anyway, so you can do it with me, or you can take your chances with the rest of the industry.
Well, one of the things that I ran into is quite a few of my clients I got because people had gone to Fiverr, gone for someone that was just charging the bare minimum, and then been very surprised when it had blown up in their face.
Oh, so surprised.
And when they came around again, they were like, well, no, we're actually willing to pay industry standard in terms of what the WOW report says, because this has cost us time and money.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, as a business owner you will try and get things cheaper. That's just human nature. That's bartering, but don't allow it to discourage you. Often you can have a couple of those and you will run into so many of them, and once you do, you then start to mentally believe your service is worth less, and then you put your prices back, and then you realise, I can't actually sustain this. Now I have to get volume to fill the gap, and now you're working with multiple different clients and small retainers, and normally the less a client pays, the more demanding they are. Usually. That's
a big thing.
So, and there's all those little things you'll run into, but don't let that interfere with your mental perception of your skills and pricing.
That's a major thing. In terms of imposter syndrome, I really struggled with that. I massively undercharged. You know how you said about people laughing at you in terms of charging too much? The funny thing for me is the opposite happened. I offered to whitelist for an animator, and she asked my day rate. I told her my day rate, and she laughed at me. She was like, absolutely not. I'm not paying you that. I'm paying you, I kid you not, triple. Okay?
Yeah.
So
serious.
She was like, what are you doing? But before she said that, I I felt really embarrassed charging the amount I was already charging, you know.
And you don't know what you don't know until you've done it, right?
Because I'd already had clients laugh in my face and say, I'm not paying that much, it's not worth that much. And then you had this fellow animator and mentor who just turned around and was like, any person that's paying you that much is not paying you enough.
Yep.
And if they laugh at you, that's their problem, not you. Your skill set is worth this much.
Yeah, because they're uneducated in the field, and you are. And that's the big thing to remember, is that it can be so hard to get over that barrier initially, and it can be like, sometimes I still think I struggle with it. Even I have a piece of proof to say this is how much we charge. For some reason I get this innate sense of guilt for charging what our agency's worth, and we're like a team of 5 now who do stuff with national clients, and it's just like, I shouldn't feel this guilt, but I do, and it's a human nature thing.
Especially when clients push back. I mean, clients can make you feel really, really garbage about yourself, and they can get quite shirty, especially when it comes to money or small businesses. It's their business, it's their baby. They don't have the budget, and they can get frustrated and quite personal, even potentially quite insulting at some point.
Yeah.
It's not a reflection of your worth in any way.
Yeah. It's just some people's personal circumstances play into it. They sometimes having a bad time at home, they'll take it out on a freelancer. That's just the way the world is. But I think establishing, especially when you're first starting, if it's just you, one of the hardest things to do is turn down a lead, even if it's like slightly less than you'd want. They have to align with where you want to be, and you have to trust them as a person, because the age-old thing that you have to trust your gut. Oh my God, you hear it and you're like, don't give me such fluffy advice, give me something real. But genuinely, if you get a bad feeling in your stomach, do not go through that contract. 1,000%.
It will cost you money. That's the big thing.
Most of the time, you'll have to learn it by force. Normally, everyone goes, it'll be all right. And then they learn it the hard way. But truly, if you do get it, don't be afraid to turn it down, because more will come. And sometimes closing one door will open another. Again, more fluffy and practical advice, but it's true. But if you do have these things set up to bring you inbound leads, and you're going out networking to find outbound ones, it will happen. So unless you're in complete dire straits, please focus on what aligns with you and listen to that feeling you get.
Also, in terms of bad clients, you know, I'm sure you've run into a bunch of times when you've not listened to your gut and picked up a client, especially larger clients. You're like, oh, but it's a larger client, I'm going to charge a little bit less, and I've got an uncomfortable feeling, and they have some unreasonable demands, but you know, they're a bigger client type thing. What ends up happening quite a lot is that you end up spending so much time meeting their demands that you don't have time to create those networks, and
you'll stay within your business, you can't grow it.
One of the clients I lost, I thought I was going to be totally screwed, having sort of fired the client. What I didn't realize is how much time they were taking meant that I couldn't pick up anything else, whether that was a smaller client or a larger client.
You'll roadblock yourself. And you'll do it because you think it will actually be you taking a step up, when in fact you're locking yourself up from future opportunities. And it is, again, something like, if someone told me at the stage where I've got a contract set in front of me, and they're like, this is a bigger client and a step up in money that I haven't had before, telling me that while it's in front of me is extremely hard to resist. But it will definitely cause you more grief than it will positivity. So it's a difficult one. Basically, like, it's do as I say, not as I do. I've definitely made that mistake, and it was only really towards right before I ended up joining James that I really started getting the hang of firing clients and making sure that clients had to align with my values and charging the right amount. It feels impossible. It's when you do it alone, it feels impossible, which is why the whole networking thing and finding mentors thing. Finding mentors is quite tough, because I think my precondition was like, there's this mystical sensei on a mountain that I'm going to meet one day that's going to see my business, but like, you're going places, kid. You're coming with me. And it's not like that. It's more of a case of, You'll have someone that genuinely likes what you're doing, loves your skill level, which want to check in every now and then. Find lots of those people. You can bounce off of those, or join co-working spaces.
More than one mentor is a big thing. A lot of people think that they have one mentor and it's
exactly
sage
the one
and can guide them. No, every single person has a different skill set and different limitations, and you don't want to limit yourself with your mentor's limitations. You know, so have 3 or 4 mentors, have 5 or 6 if you can find them, if they align with your values and they think what you're doing is cool. Just build that network and listen to as many people as you can. Yeah,
it's tough, and actually, when looking at it, a lot of your coaches will probably be older than you or mentors, and how they did their business, I guarantee you 80% of how they did it probably won't apply to you now in 2021 and beyond. So this is also something you have to keep in mind. You have to take their advice in a grain of salt, and with a grain of salt, and try and modernize it slightly, because taking their word for gospel is dangerous. It's tough. It is tough. So think about that always, because sometimes if you just trying to do things old school like that, it's really hard. It's really hard. But just to wrap up that segment, yes, network, lean on people, don't try and do it all yourself, and know how much you're worth, and do not be afraid to turn people down. That's the big one. And
100%, do not work yourself to death. You can do it. You will get sick. It's not worth it. One more thing to really factor into freelancing, depending on your industry, it can be extremely lonely. I think the biggest thing I struggled with, especially through the pandemic, I previously didn't think I was a particularly social person before the pandemic hit. I actually thought I was quite antisocial. If I could go home and have a cup of tea and a book instead of go out, I'd probably do that. Probably still true. Yeah. But working for yourself, by yourself, day in, day out, make time for friends, family. You're not going to be building those relationships organically anymore when you're not working in unless you're working in a co-working space, which has been fantastic.
Yeah. Bit of a life hack, that one. I do like, they've done so much for our business, but even joining virtual communities. So one I encourage everyone to check out is the Only Network, run by James and Kelly West. Extremely lovely people, and they've created a very nice environment for networking for people who like people. So this isn't more of a transactional one where everyone's just going there like, you gonna buy from me? You gonna buy from me? No. All right, cool, this is over. Because that's not what real networking is. Real networking is building proper connections that last a long time, that can then be referral networks in the future, and just to build your classic little black book of contacts. So leverage those guys. I'll put the link in the comments to it and in the description, but they're extremely valuable. Can't tell you how many one-to-ones and meetings I've had and new people I've met because of it. I think it's going to lead to very good places in our business, and it's very affordable. So check those guys out as the first step to building a community, so you can actually just talk to people and not feel so lonely, even if it is via Zoom, although they do lots of physical stuff too.
And in terms of Facebook groups too, that I really want to showcase for particularly female creatives, Women in Marketing, huge one, run by Stephanie. And she's amazing and really funny. And Freelancing Females is another one. Literally just pop on there, join them, post in there. They're all really friendly. Yeah. And you do get the sense of community. You know, when you just said people are like, okay, you're going to buy from me, you're not going to buy from me. Not like that at all, not competitive at all. Yeah. If you ask a question, if you ask for trade secrets, you said there's no such thing as a trade secret anymore. Nope. There isn't. Those are groups where women understand that and they just want to help you out.
It's a support network. Everyone needs it. I think it's been slept on before the pandemic, but now we know how much we really need it afterwards.
Yeah, so we're not going to sleep on it again.
No, we're not. Most certainly we're not. So, last shake of the bag. We've got 6 minutes left of the show. We're going to see.
Quick.
All right. The value of video animation.
Oh.
That's your wheelhouse. Over to you, Bob.
Okay, whole 6 minutes. I did tell you I could do it in 5, didn't I?
Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Video marketing for a really long time has been slept on. And we're slowly people are starting to see the value of that now, especially with, when Vine exploded, people were obsessed.
Rest in peace, Vine.
We now have TikTok, which is almost exclusively video content. You do see a couple of statics, but anyway, when it comes to content, there's sort of tiers of value to content. You have, it starts off with text-based stuff. You're going to get your information across. It works. Blogs are highly effective. Then you have static images, much higher information retention rate, a little bit more engaging. People scroll through Instagram. That's why Instagram did so well. Then you have video, which is video content like you're watching with us now. A little bit more engaging, even higher information retention rate. People, especially if you have closed captions on.
Yep.
Captions are really important, guys.
Absolutely needed, especially on LinkedIn and TikTok.
Accessibility is a huge thing, but it's not just for people that struggle with being hard of hearing. It's also because most people watch video on silent. And if they can't see what you're saying, they're not going to listen to you. So people think that they can sleep on that and they can just post a video because captions are a pain. You're missing a large part of your market if you don't.
Native optimization being a nice keyword throw around.
Yeah. Then animation. Animation performs better across the board. It performs better than video, static images, or text. It has the highest information retention rate. And in terms of storytelling and visuals, it can often bypass that initial issue that people have when they feel like they're being talked down to or advertised to. People look at animations, it just sort of bypasses that little bit, where they just sort of go, oh, entertaining. But people will remember what you've posted. People will be paying attention for a longer time. It is more engaging. And it's just an easy win overall. It doesn't have to be super complex. You can have a whiteboard animation that you run through Fiverr that's cheap, easy, and out in a week.
Yeah, start somewhere is always the important thing, isn't it?
But yeah, if you want your message across and you want people to hear it, the easiest, fastest way of doing that, and making sure that people remember what you've said, animation. Yeah, hands down.
If your communication barrier is education, especially, and you
complex
need someone,
concepts are a massive thing. You have the value of co-working spaces, or companies that sell registered office addresses, or accountants that have niche markets that they need to express and explain complex concepts. Yes. Animation works fantastically for that. You have a wall of text explaining accounting. Good luck to you. He's already asleep. Half your audience is too. You might have an infographic that might be an effective way of explaining it. You might have someone sat here trying to explain it to you in a video.
That's better.
It's much better. It is much better. But an animation provides you that flexibility for complex concepts, especially, or boring concepts, especially. Yeah. That is more accessible. So if you have something that's a little bit less tangible, or a service that's a little bit complex to understand, or you're finding that people aren't paying attention, hands down, even if it is a Fiverr job, animation is definitely the way to go. Yeah.
Start somewhere, see the results, and level up from there. Especially if it's an ad campaign that needs to push education. So if you're in medical field, political field, whatever it is, that animation is going to perform 1,000,000% better than most things you can do, and it gets over the barrier of people being not comfortable in front of camera, because that is a bit of a niche skill, and it takes a while to get over.
Getting content in general can be an issue. I did a couple of works for charities that then couldn't release they handed me some footage, because I do video editing as well. They handed me some footage. It turns out that they couldn't get the consent of the people in the video.
Release forms, people. Release forms.
Yes, please. for your poor film editor and animator, please get those release forms. So I'd actually finished the video, 2 passes through, already gone through a second round of amends, when they came back and said that they didn't have consent on 50% of the footage. What do you do then?
Cry slightly.
We then, we did. I cried a little bit.
Yeah.
But the only way that we could get around that was quickly animate 50% of the video. It was a totally different budget.
Yeah.
But if that hadn't been the case from the get-go, it probably would have been a bit cheaper. So getting around stuff like that, if you can't get footage, if you can't get the rights to footage, none of that's an issue with animation.
And that's why everyone needs to be using it.
Yeah.
And that perfectly wraps up the episode. Clarissa, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, that was fun.
I know, right? It was great. Everyone, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It would be amazing for the analytics. We hope to put these out weekly, and there'll be more guests on the way, and some very exciting guests at that. So smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. Any and all content that's out there on all the various platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you happen to be seeing this, drop a like, really, really helps. Share if you can, also, just to plug everything. And if you need anything from me or Clarissa, all the details will be down below. But with that said, we'll see you later.
One more thing, if you want me back on here, drop it in the comments.
Yes.
Because I'm in the studio and I am always happy to talk shit. So
yeah, because I think this has been extremely valuable for people starting off in the freelancing realm as well. So let's see if we can drop this in Women in Marketing. There might be a beneficial episode for the group. But we'll see you all on the next one. See you later.
Ciao.